Okay, welcome to our March Development Activities Meeting. My name is Barbara Rudiak and I'm the president of the Southside Community Council. We have had eight dams to date. If you're new to the meetings and would like to know how Southside Community Council became an RCO and why RCOs hold these meetings, you can go to our website at southsidecommunitycouncil.org. Go to the tab about us and then to news information, and it'll provide you with that information. We work closely with city planning through this process and have two city planners with us this evening. Philip Wu is our host, and he will explain how to participate in the meeting. Anthony Kobach is our neighborhood city planner who will be taking notes for the dam page and provide comments when needed. We have two projects this evening, the apartments at Southside Works and Esser's Plaza. After each presentation, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions and provide comments. After each, we will discuss the next steps in the process. So Phil, you can share how to participate.
All right, thank you, Barbara. As Barbara mentioned, I'll be going over a few housekeeping items related to participating in tonight's virtual meeting. First, if anyone runs into any technical issues, please tap the Q&A button and we'll try to help you troubleshoot. If you would like to ask questions to our presenters tonight, please use the chat feature to type in your question. Or if you would like to ask a question out loud, tap the raise hand button and we'll unmute you when it's your turn. If you're calling in by phone and would like to speak, I'll announce the last four digits of your phone number and unmute you when we're ready to have you ask your question. For our presenters tonight, we ask that you be mindful of any attendees who may be on their phones or might otherwise not have the presentation in front of them, and to try your best to describe what's on each of the slides. And lastly, this meeting is being recorded for the Southside Community Council to post online at a later time. And with that, I think we can get started. Tonight's first project will be Southside Works Apartments at 2613 South Water Street. And Travis, would you like to share your screen?
Yes, I can do that.
And it looks like you've given them a name, correct? Riverfront Apartments.
It's not the formal name as of yet, but this is what we're calling it at this point. So
Better than what I had down.
right. So
Barbara, I promise we'll come up with something a little better when we officially name it.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to let Andrew just kind of introduce the project, representing Samara Road as the owner, and then I'll go through the design portion of the presentation.
Sure, thanks, Travis. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Donchez. I'm a principal at Samara Road. We are a New York and Pittsburgh based owner, operator, developer, builder in the real estate world. We are the owners of Southside Works. We acquired basically what you see on the screen right now in 2019, and since then have been undertaking what I would describe as kind of a wholesale reimagining of a lot of the components of Southside Works that we own. Mostly focused initially on repositioning some of the vacant retail, re-tenanting some of the vacant retail, reimagining and redoing some of the office space, as well as a big, pretty sizable improvements project on a lot of the public spaces that are part of Southside Works. What you see on the screen right now is a little overview of kind of our master plan for some of those public spaces. The plan includes a pretty significant improvement to the town center, creation of new food and beverage plazas adjacent to a dog park, installation of new playgrounds, garden paths, and kind of a wholesale re-envisioning and reimagining of the public components of Southside Works. We also are currently under construction on an adaptive reuse of the former movie theater, as shown on the plan as the box office. We're currently under construction on converting the theater into about 75,000 square feet of office, which should be completed later this year, which we're really excited about. And what we are here to talk to you tonight about as a next phase of this investment, this kind of reimagining of Southside Works, which is a residential multifamily project on the vacant lot on South Water Street.
All right.
You want to skip ahead, Travis?
Sure. Yeah.
So we, Desmone Architecture, Travis Kreidler is on the call as well. Travis is the lead for Desmone on the design of the project. This project is, really exciting for us. We think this is kind of the next phase of the development at Southside Works, and will help really round out that live, work, play ecosystem that makes the South Side of Pittsburgh and Southside Works so great. A significant investment for our company. We think Desmone and the design team have put together a really attractive project, and I will let Travis kind of walk you through what we're proposing.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Before I get started on the presentation, just kind of give you an update on where we are within the process and the community groups and organizations that we've met with so far to date. We've had our pre-application with city planning and had our initial submission to get the urban design target set, as well as feedback on the design and zoning review. We've met, I think Andrew and team has met with the Southside Planning Forum. We've met with River Life and received comments back from them. We just last week met with CDAP and also received comments from that group, that panel. And our plan is to try to, within the month, to get on the Planning Commission briefing agenda with a hearing and action in sometime in May. We are asking for a final land development approval through Planning Commission. Just some quick data points here. We are in the SP5, which is the Southside Works zoning district, especially planned district. Our building area is approximately 350,000 square feet total. Our first level area is approximately 56,000 square feet. And from South Water Street, we are almost 85 feet to the top of the parapet, which is about 7 stories. And then we have a partial lower level on the riverside. We have 250 units, apartment units with supporting amenity space and parking. We are taking a bike reduction, but we far exceed the amount of bike parking that is required for that reduction. We're also doing traffic studies just to confirm our initial estimates on parking counts. I'll run through some overview of the site in the location here. Obviously, most of you know where this is. Just wanted to give some context images. We are directly adjacent to the river and the Southside Marina, for those that aren't seeing the visual. And to the east of us is the South Shore Riverfront Park and the Hofbräu House. To the south is along Water Street and Tunnel Street is the open space. And across those streets is the City Club Apartments and the REI building. Just another view showing kind of the greater Southside Works and the mid-rise buildings there. View down the river, showing them close up the marina and the riverbank condition that is adjacent to our building with heritage trails. And up here is the kind of plateau where our building will be sitting. Some context images, adjacent buildings, City Club here, Hofbräu House, the park adjacent, REI. A few site context images. Currently the site is being used for some construction staging. It's generally a flat site from east to west with a slight drop towards the west. And it sits proud of the trail at the far end about 20 feet and at the west end about 5 feet. These are some additional images of the trail and the Riverfront Park. Riverfront Park at the top here. We sit up on this kind of plateau. Some views from the Heritage Trail. Then get statuary that's about mid-span down the trail. And then the marina at the far west. I'm not going to dive into the PLDP design guidelines. One thing I did want to point out of significance is that the original plan for the Southside Works had 27th Street as what they called Marina Boulevard, being this formalized street that was parallel to 26th Street. In reality, what happened is that it stayed parallel to 28th Street and didn't take this diagonal. At the end of this was always planned to be this designated view corridor, and the park ended up being that corridor here at this end. What it did here, as you can see, is pulled this intersection to here and left kind of a tapering site that we're working with here today. Also of significance is that this particular area here, as well as the area around the Hot Metal Bridge, was designated as a landmark building, which in the PLDP allows up to 100 feet, 9 stories. In the zoning, there's a little bit of a discrepancy. It allows up to 110 feet. Our building is not exceeding either one of those numbers. This slide shows some neighborhood connections in the future vision that Andrew had mentioned. We have worked with Samara Road's Parks team, A7, to make sure that what we're doing here along the multifamily ties back into the parks adjacent. There is this idea of the potential for vacating South Water Street between 26th Street and 27th Street. That is part of the parks project. There has been some conversation and activity with that. But at this point, we're planning to, make sure there's tie-ins if that happens, but we are designing this as a standalone building at this point. This slide also shows some important kind of pedestrian access along the street grids from the heart of the South Side Works in the red, and then also the Heritage Trail in the green, and some of the connections that we plan to make along here with the building. This is an overall site plan. I'm going to jump through a couple of these pretty quickly. Some of them allow me to get in a little more detail of the site, just the overview. In our observations, we found some interesting, fun kind of features along the Heritage Trail. The trail pretty much from the marina to the South Shore Park is really kind of a quiet area with the elevated portion of the trail. It really overlooks the river nicely, kind of serene along here. So we want to leave a portion of that, but there's some cool elements down at the end that are associated with the old steel mill there, the Morgan Mill Gate, the ingot statuary here, and then some just existing monuments down at the end that we want to kind of work with and tie into. As well as there's some really nice connection points with the ramps and the stairs along the South Shore Riverfront Park that we want to tie into the building and help activate that a little more. Sorry, my computer's jumping. This is the east end, and zoomed in a little bit just to get a little more clarity on this. This is South Water Street along the front. On the southeast corner is the primary entrance. We are having some activation here with seating in the plaza, and we want a kind of seamless connection with the drop off in the plaza here that's already existing with the South Shore Riverfront Park. Further down, about mid-span of the building, we do have the vehicular access. We're looking at street trees and working with the city forester to get that right, as well as referencing the PLDP. As we move down along the east side of the building, down the slope of the bank to the Heritage Trails, we're creating a lot of activation here on this end with this porch element that's kind of public area that ties directly into the South Shore Riverfront Park. It can be a great place for just lounging or outdoor yoga or so forth. We also have several trailside apartment units that are walk out to the trail and set slightly above with private kind of patios back here. And then integral to this is the landscape. Right now, the site really doesn't have a whole lot of landscaping or natural vegetation along it. There's a tree or two that we have to replace, but our landscape plan is pretty vigorous and will exceed what's there using native plants and kind of revitalizing that area of the trail, because right now it's kind of a bunch of scrappy kind of vegetation and so forth. Moving further to the west, like I indicated, about mid-span is the Ingot Sculpture Plaza. We want to make a gesture here, some informal seating that kind of maybe ties back into the hillside a little bit, but kind of memorializes that location. And then again, using the vegetation along this area to kind of create more of a quiet area. This backs up against some of the parking screening, and we'll use that, that vegetation to help screen the parking from the trail, although we are kind of elevated up off the trail a bit. At the west end, we have a vehicular access point, as well as some loading area that's kind of tucked into the building. Just given the fact that we're up against the river, we're kind of constrained on where we can have this loading area. We are working with the fire department to make sure we conform to access for them. We're also trying to create a public access point here at G, and trying to work out so we can eliminate the stairs so that we can have a bike ramp down to the trail. Otherwise, you have to go down from the east at the park, or you have to come the whole way down the trail past the south side marina parking lot before you can access the trail. At the front here, important feature here, we're trying to celebrate the bike capacity and our connection to the Heritage Trail. We have some transparency into some bike storage areas. We also have this plaza out here with some outdoor bike parking and some seating area. We're trying to come up with a strategy overall to use as much impervious paving as possible for infiltration for stormwater management, as well as some of these areas here just to kind of also assist in infiltrating. Key to our overall stormwater management strategy is this upper level. This is elevated up off the trail. These are the amenity spaces within the residential project. These are 2 stories above the trail at this point, almost 3 at this point at the east end. But again, using native vegetation and opportunities to have a green roof to absorb stormwater runoff off the building. I'm not going to get too much into the plans. First and second floor are very similar, with parking being a large component. The entry point again at the the southeast corner, access to the lobby and amenities in the core, some residential access down here at the west end of Water Street, the bike storage that I mentioned, the vehicular access. The lower level trail kind of looks like this with the walkouts and some additional amenities, some fitness areas and lounge spaces that look out towards the river. This is the second floor that kind of matches the first floor. So I'm jumping back up a few floors. And then this is the third floor where the residential component turns into more of a double loaded corridor and rises above the podium structure. And that goes from 3rd to 7th floors, as you can see here. To go through our kind of design and material concept, just to briefly touch on that to give you an idea of some of the thoughts we've had. One of the things we observed right away on the site is the connection to the riverbank, the rock strata that you're seeing along there, as well as some of the layering effects that happen with some of the man-made structures and the natural structures. Taking inspiration from that, we're using that material for the podium structure, as some of the areas around the pedestrian connections on the upper levels, obviously trying to get as much transparency as possible into the space and out of the space. But in the areas where there's, parking lot, we have screening. We're looking towards inspiration from the hot metal bridge with the diagonals and verticals of the structure, as well as like the masts of the marina and some of the playground equipment and the movement and activity out there. Further up off the podium on the upper floors, the residential floors, we're looking at river expression and the reflectivity that we see off the river, both at night with the lights and during the day with the buildings, trying to carve away at views and give a nod back to the downtown urban area. These slides kind of reinforce that idea of the layering effect. This gives a great image of how the riverbank steps up at certain tiers along here. And we're trying to use the building both from a material standpoint and a massing standpoint to kind of reinforce that stepping. We really like this idea of the layering that you saw with some of the natural and early man-made kind of riverbank structures layered with some of the new stuff on top. And these sections really start to show that and reflect that, where you can see, down here, pretty low to the river is about 710. And as you step up towards the flats, it's 40, 50 feet higher. And mid-span at the amenity space, you can really see how we use the building to try to reinforce that concept. Some additional views from the west. To jump a little more in depth on the materiality and the facade treatments, I spoke of this riverbank strata layering effect, and you can see it here reflected in this bottom portion in these vertical elements here. We're going to use that material to kind of replicate that strata look and use these kind of chutes or chimneys to help break up some of the volumes and length of the overall building. This is reflecting back to that idea of the movement and the masts, as well as the bridge and the diagonals and verticals, using that to support the screen into the open parking garage to allow light and airflow through, supplementing with some lower level vegetation to help block the direct views of the vehicles. This also gives us some great opportunities to backlight some of this just to enhance the overall design of the building. Moving up to the upper elements, as you see here in the white and the gray, these white volumes start to break down the overall length of the building. And we wanted to try to make larger kind of gestures with these volumes to break it down versus a lot of small ones. Once we get into the overall elevations, you'll see that a little better. But also using these volumes here to kind of intersect the overall length to project views out towards the city and the river, and also create this area here on the backside for our amenity spaces. Again, looking back at the river expression and reflectivity, we've shifted the windows from floor to floors to help kind of create that movement and that shift in pattern, and reinforce that with some texture using the brick and turning them out. So that really helps define those volumes, those intersecting volumes. And then on the volumes kind of in between, we've used cement board products, various colors, to have a similar effect, that similar kind of movement effect, but slightly different to break up the overall mass of the building. Here's some materials that we're proposing. Those intersecting volumes, we're looking at an ivory brick, and then in between a darker and a lighter cement board panel with some of the extrusions and some of the elements using an accent fiber cement panel, as well as on some of the kind of ground level or balcony edges, looking at using this light bronze colored metal to accentuate those areas. You'll see more of that in the elevations and the 3D perspectives. And then finally, for the strata material at the base, we're looking at an architectural precast panel or some kind of masonry that has various sizes and textures to replicate that strata effect. So I'm going to show you some 2D elevations, just to kind of give you an overall length. Obviously you'll never see the building like this. So we've given also some axons, bird's eye perspective types views, as well as street level views, really give you an idea of what the building's going to look like. So this is this is helpful in kind of from a design perspective, seeing how the volumes are broken down, using these vertical elements, these strata elements, to help further break down the volumes, and then the movement of the screen and these supporting structures along the base. This is the riverside view, the north view. Again, you can see these volumes projecting out, breaking up that facade, creating views on the sides for the residents, but also creating this amenity space up top. And then at the pedestrian level along the trail, this movement along here of the screens, and then the podium structure with the strata materials and the activation of with the balconies and all the transparency into the building along the trail. From the east, again, using balconies and this kind of movement to really enhance the activity along the riverfront park. Then on the west, tucking back some of the service areas behind the screening, opening up some of the windows to the west towards the downtown view and the river. And I'll just flip through these and speak briefly. The last few slides are just the 3D views. This is kind of an overall, again, never going to really see the building in this capacity, but it really, from a design perspective, shows the overall design. Jumped ahead. This is a view you will see. This is from 27th Street, looking down that designated view corridor towards the Riverfront Park. I think we're about 140 feet between our building and the Hofbräu House. So there's a nice open view here. Transparency at the corner with the entry element. Again, the activity on the east against the park. This is looking from South Water Street, looking towards the west. You can see the steel building down here, the open space in front of the building, the activity here on the east facade in relationship to the Hofbräu House. More kind of ground level views across South Water Street and at the corner, the entry portion of the building. This is from the Riverside. Again, showing those projections coming out, the strata base, transparency into the building, the activation along the trail from the Ingot Statuary down to the park. Kind of pedestrian level view, walking down the trails. From the far west, from South 26th Street, again, you start to see the edge of the view corridor that's pretty well open at the end of the site. Mid-span, this is the vehicular entry portion that we accentuated a bit along Cole Place. And Cole Place is essentially just a connector between Tunnel and Water Street. And then a couple ground level views. This is looking towards the east. This is the bike plaza area that I had mentioned, and the storage area, kind of activating a node along the facade and adjacent to the park. This view and the next view shows what it could look like if the street was vacated, and having kind of a pedestrian promenade that comes down through here with the pervious pavers. This view again is showing that potential for the promenade and opening up the building to the parks. And it shows, the rather large distance between the new apartment building and the City Club apartments, and gives you kind of a perspective of the scale of the two adjacent to each other. And then finally, a bird's eye view from the Riverside, just kind of giving you kind of general overall context of the building within the greater South Side Flats area. And that was it. A little longer than I thought it would be.
Barbara, you're on mute.
We're ready for questions or comments. Thank you, Travis and Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Barbara, I saw a question pop up in the Q&A already, which I'd be happy to take if you want me to start.
Yeah, the question, do you want to read the question?
Yeah, I'll
Sure.
read it. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll read it. This is the question is from Breen. This is a very well-connected site. How have you minimized your parking needs on site beyond taking the bike reduction? What incentives or disincentives will you employ to reduce resident vehicles to minimize congestion and emissions in the neighborhood?
Breen, great question. I think I said this when we were interested in the project. The concept for us of Southside Works is really to create a true live, work, play ecosystem. The south side of Pittsburgh, the entire south side extended community is a really attractive place to live for that reason. You don't have to get in a car to get to a restaurant. You don't have to get in a car to get to work. You don't have to get in a car to get to a park, to experience outdoor recreation, the river, et cetera. We're really trying to lean into that. We are building, believe our parking ratio, and Travis, correct me if this is incorrect, but I think we're at about 0.75 to 1, less than 1 to 1 for the residential units. And, that's intentional. We don't want to overpark this building. We do have the ability to have overflow parking in the existing south side works garages are owned by the URA. But we are going to be working very closely with the city of Pittsburgh on installing several multimodal transportation hubs in Southside works as well. Both a car share program within the building takes options as well as yours. We think the box office renovation into office space is part of that. Giving people the ability to live within a 15-minute community where they can walk out of their front door and they need within 15 minutes. We think that's what Southside Works can be, and that's what the broader Southside community of Pittsburgh offers.
We have another question in the Q&A. How many units are there, and what kind of demand are you seeing in the area for these types of units?
The project is 251 units in total. We think there's going to be tremendous demand for this project. We wouldn't be making this investment nor the investments in the rest of Southside Works and the box office or the public space if we didn't believe there was going to be substantial demand. We think Pittsburgh is a great city. We think it's got a lot of tailwinds for continued growth. And this is going to be one of many investments for our company in the city as we move forward.
Andrew, this is Kathleen Petrilla from Southside Community Council. You said 250 units. Are they all like 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms? What is the mix, and how many floors is the building going to be?
So the project is a mix of studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms. The final mix we have to work out, but it'll be some percentage of each. The building is 7 stories in total. It's effectively 5 stories of residential over 2 stories of the podium, which contains the lobby, the parking, and then that one lower level which opens up onto the trail.
This is Mike Clark with the Community Council. A couple of questions we talked about before when you came in. Just want to see if you can reconfirm some things for us. First is you have an internal garbage and recycling, central garbage and recycling room in the building. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. All the trash will be handled into the building. There are going to be several collection points for trash within the garage, and there'll be the management company a program to collect them all in one central point, which will be off the street and close within the building, and handled through either public or private pickup.
Okay, and you will be recycling per city code?
Yep. Separate garbage and recycling facilities.
Great. The other issue two other issues. One is rooftop equipment screening. We weren't able to discuss last time the equipment. You might not have decided on which route you're going yet, but it is a sensitive issue for our neighbors in the slopes and for us. We don't want to see it when we're far enough back from your building. Can you confirm that all the equipment's going to be fully screened and tucked back as far as possible and not visible to our sightlines, I guess, from the community, from the rest of the community?
Yeah, absolutely. As we talked about, we haven't gotten that far on that design into exactly what the mechanical systems are going to look like. But to the extent that there is equipment on the roof, it will be screened to minimize visual impact. Okay.
And then the last thing was about the Water Street closure, and I'm all for the taking it over as a sort of front yard. I like that. I expressed last time, and I've driven by it a couple times since actually, and we had the same problem where cars were double parked across from you for the other apartment complex, blocking the street. And we sat there and waited, as people are dropping off Uber food or Uber pickup or whatever. To facilitate a better flow here with the closure of that street, because that's my backup to go around that way. Can you as a development help Tunnel Boulevard get a pull-off in front of Southside Works City Club Apartments or something to facilitate better flow down through Tunnel Boulevard there? How can we how can we deal with that so it's not a growing issue? And
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's a good idea too, having kind of a call it an Uber or a pickup drop off of the Southside Work City Club Apartments. That's certainly something we can look at. We're gonna be in touch, through our traffic study, with the owners of that. We'll talk to them about how to potentially make that happen. Yeah, well, that'll be a consideration as part of our traffic study. Absolutely.
where will your drop off be then for Uber pickups and stuff like that? Will you become around the circular drop off now next to Hofbräu and you by the park? Is that kind of your front door for?
Yeah. Yep. So we placed the front door of the building at the turnaround across from Hofbräu House on 27th Street. That was for a couple of reasons. One, we think that turnaround is an attractive place to have a front door, but we also wanted to make sure that we really, activated that corner and that traffic circle and the riverfront park and that connection, with light and transparency and activation. So the bulk of the amenity space, the lobby, is all focused there, and that with some improvements that we're going to make to that turnaround with some additional parking and spacing, that will be kind of the drop-off point for the residential building.
Okay. And the community garden, lawn, playground, I'm assuming that's not a kid's playground envisioned there. That's more of a young adult working professional playground like it is now, kind of a chessboard sitting area, or do you see it as being a kid's playground as well? Yeah,
the playground is actually intended to be a playground, for kids, I guess, or adults. We could all end up out there playing on it if we wanted to, but it is a playground in the true sense of the word. On the other side of Tunnel Park, which isn't, highlighted with nomenclature on here, but you can kind of see there's the intent is to create a dog park there, a pretty large dog park that actually has that little brown rectangle at the west end of it. That's actually a new plaza. The intent is going to be, there's going to be, we call it a container park, but there'll be a food and beverage operator in there that is going to have, coffee, beer, food that will be connected on both sides, both to the public facing side as well as to the dog park, which the dog park is public as well. But if you don't have a dog, you can still, patronize or watch the dogs.
And will any of them be fenced in or controlled access as part of the closure of the street? The playground, maybe a 3-foot fence around it or something, but not fenced off or closed for access after hours or whatever. And any of your intent or?
No, I mean, this is all public space. None of this is meant to be private to the residents or otherwise. Obviously, a fence around the dog park would probably be kind of a 3-foot high or 4-foot high fence around the playground for safety purposes. But all of this is intended to be public space.
Great. Thank you. That's perfect.
So any other comments or questions?
Hi, Peter Kreutzmeyer. I have a few comments. First off, I was elated to see the analysis page on the PLDP and the Southside Works design guidelines. As it turns out, my business partner here is the author of those design guidelines, which the city commissioned about 2 years after the PLDP came out. So we're very familiar with that document. There's a few things in that we're not seeing being upheld in this proposal, and specifically on the massing of this proposed apartment building. It's big. It's like 2 blocks long big. One of the principles from the design guidelines was maintaining or preserving connectivity from Tunnel Park, that sort of green swath that's various things, the dog park, the playground, and so forth, preserving views from that Tunnel Park out to the river. And in your cross section, which I was very interested in, how you have the housing on top of this plinth. It looks to be a very open thing underneath it with the parking. I guess it's just the screens on either side, if I saw that correctly. I'm wondering if this might be an occasion to even dial back that parking screening in some fashion, that it would provide some level of transparency from Tunnel Park out to the river. So you're not met with this 2-block long wall when you're in the park, and that it actually does have some type of connection to the river. So I mean, I understand the, you know, the various massing moves of, okay, how do you conceptually break up this very long thing? And I think, you know, articulating it is kind of, you know, go a little bit further. I don't know, can you take out a section of it, or can you make it less than 2 blocks long when it rises above the plinth? Could it be, you know, individual things popping up? Because scale wise, it's the one of a kind in the entire Southside Works. Any other building you look at is not nearly as gigantic as that. So if there's a way to do something about the connectivity to the river from the park, and if there's a way to break up the hugeness of this, more so than with a change in materials.
Or it has to be the most beautiful wall ever.
Or it has to be the most beautiful wall ever.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, one of the I think the challenges has been with the length of the site, maximizing the density and so forth, creating that street wall. We have explored multiple options, multiple story buildings and so forth. You're essentially creating 2 separate projects. We have talked about, do we create some kind of central kind of corridor in this, you know, maybe even like at the vehicular access point and carry through. The question always came up is, you know, do people really want to walk through there? It's kind of mid-span of the overall length of the building. From a destination to the trail, I think a lot of people are going to be coming from 27th Street and 26th Street and just heading on down to the trail.
I'm talking about visual connectivity.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need people walking, you know, into your apartment complex, but you know, it sort of walls off the river, and I think that's in urban design terms, it's kind of mean.
Travis, you correct me if this isn't right, but I believe that in the PLDP diagram that you had earlier in the presentation, the orientation of streets and view sheds is significantly different than what ultimately ended up getting built and kind of the site that we're now designing around. The view shed that was intended to kind of be across Tunnel Park through this site is actually on 27th Street, where the staircase is. Correct me if any of that isn't right, but.
Yeah, that's correct. And, you know, that's the one thing that this building also has that the other buildings along South Water Street don't have is the huge amount of open space on either side of the building. And, you know, with this kind of thinning of the site at this end, I think the mass kind of went linear for this particular site. Trying to get back to the other side, but, you know, essentially we have 140 feet or so across this view corridor. All the other view corridors down between the buildings are very small. But we have looked at, you know, the potential of even, you know, looking at more glass, and we put a little bit more in, but the reality is unless you're standing, you know, floating in air and looking through, it's the visual connection is going to be very challenging, where, you know, the air and the light through the screening is what we're hoping will kind of open up that lower level a little bit as you walk down the sidewalk.
So when you go back to your office and pull up the Southside Works design guidelines, you have one of the pages here in your presentation. Check out page 17 of that shows a bit more openness. I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to express here, is that, you know, this 2 block long thing kind of doesn't do the openness thing. That's my observation.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
How long is the building? How long?
It's about 475 feet along Water Street.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't the city limit like 500 feet?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Can I just ask, this is Matt Brungo. I'm also curious, how likely is it to remove South Water Street? And can you maybe talk about how that may help alleviate some of the pressure of 475 feet of frontage? If Water Street is closed, it becomes more of a park-like space. Could you comment on that maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to, Matt. We're pursuing the vacation of South Water Street kind of on a separate but parallel track with the design of this building. As Travis said, the design of the building isn't necessarily dependent on the vacation of South Water Street, but to your point, we think it's improved. So the design of that park, the process for vacating South Water Street is in process with planning and DP and DOMI and fire right now. Obviously, there are multiple groups that have to kind of opine and sign off on a legal process it has to go through. But the intent is to run that concurrently with the design and permitting of this residential project. To your point, Travis, you can go one more slide down to 11 there. I think our goal for this project, was transparency at the base through screening and visual connections to the river, as well as use this way to kind of create a significantly improved kind of pedestrian and public experience in Southside Works, both as a standalone improvement to the tunnel parks and to the town square and all the public space in Southside Works, but also using this as a catalyst to create kind of better connectivity between the Heritage Trail, the Riverfront Park, and the broader Southside Works public space. Which we think we can do through the improvement of the pedestrian promenade in front of the building, improvement of all the public spaces, including the playground, the bike track, really opening this up and making it feel like an inviting place as opposed to kind of a no man's land, with significantly less kind of engagement in the open space on the tunnel park right now. So we think it's an important design feature, which is why we're pursuing it and committing to make the investment to do it. Our intent is to take it through concurrently with the improvements of the residential building, and all the feedback we've gotten has been positive so far. And I don't see any reason, pending going through the rest of the process, that it won't occur and get approved as part of this project. On what?
For comparison on this slide, do you know, Travis, how long the facade is of the Southside City Works apartments?
I think at one point we roughed that out. I think it's over 300 feet, but I'm not positive on how long that building is.
Travis, is that 300 feet on Tunnel Boulevard or on 26th Street? Because 26th Street seems to be quite a bit longer.
I'm just kind of looking here from this point to this point. So it's somewhere, if this is 475, it's somewhere in the 300 range, I would imagine.
So about 2/3 the length of your facade on South
Right.
Water.
Right.
Thank you.
And
Do have sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, to note this, Cole Place is here. This portion of what appears to be Cole Place there's a lot of private do not enter kind of activities. There's back of house stuff. So the street doesn't carry through very well. And it's not kind of a vehicular, like a public vehicular access point either.
And that view shed, Travis, that's shown in the previous slide, kind of in the middle of our site, actually is on the right-hand side.
Right. The view corridor ends up being through here.
do have a follow-up question from Green. Did you consider design alternatives with active uses along the street facade? 2 stories of screening is a lot of dead space and could discourage walking in the area.
Sure, happy to answer that one. The concept for creating openness and, kind of visual connectivity through the facade with the screening, is somewhat intentional. Creating a pedestrian experience where you see light through the building, you can see through the river, albeit through a building, is part of the kind of the design ethos, the intent. The alternative to, create, retail space or some kind of activated space along that building. We did look at concepts of putting more retail space in. Well, candidly, there is a significant amount of vacant retail space in Southside Works. And we just don't feel that, there's a need or, this is not the right place to include, more retail space, albeit it would, may create more visual activation. We want to focus this on, creating a, great pedestrian experience, a great public space experience, and use the resources we have with potential vacation of South Water Street and the improvements to the park to focus on that pedestrian experience rather than, kind of artificially creating activation on the front of this building with retail space that, we think candidly would, likely struggle, in the context of Southside Works.
And so Travis and Andrew, that screening is essentially screening your parking lot beyond, correct? The resident parking?
Yes, that's correct.
So, and it's creating that transparency from the street to really the other side of the river. So at night, you're going to want to provide safety and security for the folks that, even though it's a secure parking facility for your residents, you're going to have that internally illuminated to provide safety and security to your residents when they park in there, even though it's not a public lot. So have you done any studies to really what that lighting is at night, how that looks through that perforated screen, how that spills over onto the sidewalk? And are we going to have sort of this cold, ugly, glowing box down there that's going to be really harsh and sort of industrial looking?
I certainly hope not. The intent is to candidly do the exact opposite. I think that with some smart lighting design, we can really do something that, augments the experience. Whereas now, I've walked around there at night, there's some street lamps. It's not the most inviting place. The intent is to make this an incredibly inviting place, to make sure that people are comfortable at night, to make sure people are experiencing all this public space, not just during the day, but at night as well. And use this as kind of a beacon that creates, visual activity as well as actual activity, on this part of Southside Works. So I think, Travis is showing some concepts for what the backlighting and the screening options are to be there. I think the intent is to make this, the most inviting place we possibly can. And I think at the end of the project design, we create a much inviting pedestrian experience than otherwise.
Yeah, and our next level of exploration is going to look at it at night and do a study or two from both the riverside and the Water Street side.
I was just curious, with this being 7 stories and having so much glass on the southern facade, have you looked at all at glare, where that would be directed in the morning and the evening? And I mean, I know the building across the street is 6 stories, but how will that glare be redirected into the neighborhood? Do you have any idea?
No, we haven't done any type of glare studies on the building.
And I think given the distance between this building and the City Club apartments across the park and the streets, I'm not an architect, but I don't think there's necessarily going to be an issue with glare off of our building reflecting into their building or vice versa. I think we can certainly do a sun analysis to see what it looks like, but I don't foresee that necessarily being an issue here.
Yeah, I don't either. Again, you're going to have more problems at pedestrian level, if anything, with any of the buildings around the South Side Works with glare. We're not planning to use mirrored glass or anything like that either.
Russ here.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Andrew, I had a question. During your presentation, you talked about on the left side, you were thinking about putting a bike ramp down to the trail. And I was wondering if that bike ramp will only be available to the residents or if it will also be available to anybody that's in the area that's coming from the South Side Works down to the trail.
Yeah, no, good question. You know, all of the improvements kind of outside the building will be open to the public. There will certainly be some access control to the, you know, into the building, obviously into the garage, and some kind of call it the immediately adjacent outdoor space, like that little seating plaza on the opposite corner. But the intent is that, you know, all of this is publicly accessible. You know, particularly, you know, that bike room there, you know, again, leading into the idea of connectivity here, you know, we're going to focus on, you know, that bike room and that kind of space out front. The bike room obviously will be, you know, for residents for bike storage, but, you know, that plaza out front, they'll have bike racks and, you know, seating areas, and will be a good place to stop if you're riding on this trail from, you know, Pittsburgh to DC or wherever the destination is. Will be open to the public. You know, all those facilities will kind of act and live in the park space into the plaza. The back side of the building too, which we're looking at now, which I think is how that would side seating. That's, you know, that's kind of another public space that we're looking to use to kind of incorporate this building and the design of this community into the public sphere. You know, that in-God sculpture plaza we think is really cool. And we're going to create a kind of a public seating amphitheater area built into the hillside, which is technically, you know, will be on our property, but will again be open to the public, which we think is a great spot, you know, to kind of take in the view, you know, taking the view of the river, taking the view of the plaza, the in-God statues, and, you know, it's a great kind of, you know, place for reflection and a quiet moment as you're making your way down the trail.
This is Koi Lin. I have a question. And I'm just wondering, I came in a little bit late. When are you planning to have this completed? And is there an elevator or is it all stairs in the apartments?
So I'll take your questions in the opposite order. There are 3 or 4 elevators in the building, Travis, I think 4. And
4.
they'll service all floors, bottom to top. And, you know, our goal is to break ground this project by the end of the year. You know, we think it'll be about a 2-year construction schedule. You know, so call it, you know, December of, you know, November, December, 2 years from now, 2023, we hope to be delivering the first residences here.
Okay, thank you.
Bob Russ here. I wanted to comment on a couple of things. So I kind of concur with Peter.
Bob,
Can't hear you, Bob.
It's because I'm trying to mute myself again. And drive.
Does this sound better?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm with Peter that the building's so tall and so long, it is quite a wall along the riverfront. But you know, I guess personally, I've seen so many developments on this site over the years. You know, we're just hopeful that something can finally happen. I'm glad to see kind of an alternative material palette than some of these similar type of residential projects that are popping up all over the place that tend to be very generic. So I think that was nice about the whole presentation. I know I'm one of the people that cut through South Side Works just to miss a couple of red lights on Carson Street. So the closing of Water Street is interesting in that I do believe with you, it gives you a buffer in front of this building a bit. I guess I would be concerned too with if I'm moving in, where does the moving van park or the trucks that bring my furniture to move in? Where do the Uber drivers and visitors drop off? I assume if I have an apartment in this place, visitors to my apartment park where? In the garages. So it's a mixed bag, right? Because it sort of will help slow things down, I think, along Water Street, make it more pedestrian friendly, maybe diminishes the cross-route traffic that sometimes can help retail in bringing more eyes into the development for retail, but from the housing part of this seems to be a more comfortable change to that part of the works. So it's a whole mixed bag. It's going to have a tremendous impact if it gets built. And I'm with the other caller who's saying about your 2 stories of indoor parking and its screening and its lighting. Just down the block at the hotel, looking into that lower level, street level parking is what someone I worked with in New York called kind of looking at the backside of a chicken. It's not very pleasant. So to think that we've got 2 blocks of that, if that screening is not done right and the lighting is high intensity, high bay, really kind of utilitarian lighting of a parking garage nature, that 2 stories is going to be kind of miserable to the pedestrians on the street. So there's going to be a lot of care there. I hope that you really spend some time thinking about it.
Bob, I appreciate the comment. Just to lighting, I think our the intent here is to make our project the antithesis of that. You know, that visual light pollution that bleeds out of a garage is, you know, due to, you know, and I'm not a lighting designer and expert, but just, you know, I pretend to know a lot about this stuff. You know, is partly due to the fact that you can see the direct source of a lot of the lighting. And, you know, the intent of the screening and the thoughtful kind of placement and installation of lighting here is to kind of create background lighting, right? It has to be safe, it has to be functional, it has to provide life, health, and safety purposes. But the idea is also that it's a visual beacon that, you know, kind of is not glaring, is not, you know, in your face. You don't see the source of light, but, you know, you see the light and you see this as a beacon on in Southside Works.
Yeah, I agree.
So point taken that we'll have to be very thoughtful and considerate about our lighting design, which we certainly intend to be.
Yeah, color temperature has a lot to do with it.
Absolutely.
Bluish and off-putting kind of alien lighting. It's most disturbing. And here, if you see through that screen, it's a bunch of parked cars. It's not nearly as exciting as a retail space or the warmth of it.
Your audio or your microphone is cutting in and out.
Okay. Well, I'm going to stop. I've said enough. Thanks.
Do we have any additional comments or questions from the panel? All right, seeing none, I'd like to thank Travis and Andrew for presenting tonight. And actually, we have a slide here that's for next steps. And Barbara, would you like to go over the slide?
Yeah, as was mentioned, this will at some point be going to the Planning Commission. There is a 30-day period when we as a community council can receive additional comment that we will provide to Andrew and Travis before they move on to city planning. And their presentation can be viewed when it is scheduled, and public comment can always be provided beyond that time period when you know that they are going to be presenting to the commission. And you can email testimony to the Planning Commission. It needs to be there the day before the meeting by noon. You can send a letter to the Planning Commission, and you can always join via Zoom. And so we'll, Andrew and Travis will be providing you with any additional comment, or others will provide some at the meeting. But thank you for your time today, and thanks to everyone else for the great questions.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to present and all the commentary. Really appreciate it.
Okay,
thanks for all the input.
Okay, our next presentation is Esser's Plaza. So that's at the other end of Southside. And our presenter is Kitty Vagley, who has been working on this project endlessly. And we're very grateful to her for that.
Good evening. I have my PowerPoint presentation on my screen, but I don't know, is it on everybody's screen at this point?
No.
It's not. You have to press the share screen button, the green button at the bottom. I also have the presentation as well if you need me to share it.
At the bottom, do you see the share screen in green?
I'm gonna look. There we go. Okay. Think this is it.
There you go.
Oh no, is it March? Let me just see. Hold on. Make sure I've got the right one. Well, at least it's starting to be the right one. So we've got the first screen simply shows you via map where Esser Plaza is, right along East Carson Street by 12th. It's between the Market House at Bedford Square and the Armstrong Park Playground. And this slide is just a Google aerial slide, again, showing the relationship of the present Esser Plaza to the surrounding community. And it's right across Roland Way to Armstrong. So this is the way the plaza looked in 2018. There were hedges cutting it up and a big advertising sign and a large sign from Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. And the bushes, the hedges were just dying and scraggly. So over time, they have been removed. And right now, what we've got is a fairly open plaza. You can see where the hedges had been. So you can see that there's bricks lining it and there's grass and ground. And but this is the different views of the plaza today. And it was actually a church group dragged the picnic tables from Armstrong Park into the plaza back in 2019, and they've remained in the plaza. They seem to be well-used picnic tables. This is the conceptual design that our friends at La Quattro Bonsi drew up for us. And I want to say here that Engineers Without Borders has worked with us on this plaza for at least 5 years. And La Quattro Bonsi has been helping out for 2 or 2.5. So we're very indebted for this pro bono help that we're getting. In the next to Roland, you'll see a little white square up in the upper right-hand corner. That's an electrical box. And if you move to East Carson Street, which is on the left, you'll see that the 2 street trees that are there in real life are not on this conceptual design, because originally all those street trees were to be removed. And in fact, they all have been removed between 10th Street and 17th Street, except for the 2 that remain next to Esser Plaza. And it's an open question right now as to whether those trees are healthy enough for us to retain. We're hoping they are. There are presently 3 Zelkovas inside the plaza, but alongside East Carson Street. One is half dead, the one closest to the mural. So you see that's not pictured in this conceptual design. Just the 2 large alcovas that are there presently, closer to 12th, remain. And then there'll be a small planting underneath them. and there will be a curb, there'll be a 4-inch planter curb there, and there will be a small decorative fence around that planting park to keep our drunk friends out of it. The large white triangle sort of in the middle of the plaza towards 12th Street is a precast concrete seating area, and the lawn on top of it and among it will be a raised lawn. It will be a dome type of earthen structure. And then again at Roland, it says rain garden, but we've decided that will not be a rain garden. We are not putting in an extra drain for that garden. So it will just be a garden that can handle more water than not. The present canal stones that are used to form the 2 large flower beds in today's plaza are now going to be placed around that garden area close to Roland. So it's hard to see on this conceptual design, but if you look closely, you'll see that there are large stones inside the garden area. And so most of the canal stones will be reused right on the plaza. And again, we will be putting the sidewalks as concrete aggregate to match what PennDOT is doing on the sidewalk. And then we'll have pavers that will take you into the plaza. And you'll see where there's a sign that says optional stage placement. That, we will have some accessibility to power there, but it's not going to be a raised stage. It will simply suggest a stage area so that it can be used 365 days a year and not just when we're having an event. And then you'll see some brownstones here close to that electrical box I pointed out to begin with. And that is sort of an undefined yet use of the canal stones. And we don't quite know if it's going to be seating or climbing or, a mix thereof. There is a new street tree on 12th Street. We are removing the 2 fairly straggly street trees that are near the corner of 12th and Roland. And we're going to be planting another one a little further away from Roland. And we are keeping 3 of the 4 hawthorn trees that are presently in the plaza. The one walkway makes us have to remove the 4th hawthorn that's closest to the mural. We will be removing the service berries that are right adjacent to the alley, as they are fairly straggling and they don't add much to the aesthetics of the plaza. There are lighting fixtures that are not in this conceptual drawing, and they are at the inside corners of both of those garden areas. All right, now the next slide is going to be just want to make sure I've got the right one. I do have the right one. Okay, so here you're seeing the site plan from Engineers Without Borders. And you can see it fairly well mimics the conceptual design You see the two gardens, you see the pavers and the concrete, you see the grass area. And if you look closely, you now can see the light poles that are inside the inside tips of those two triangles. The 12th and East Carson Street has a little cloud around it because PennDOT's handling that corner. It's going to be, Mike Clark might want to speak to this in a bit. PennDOT will have that a bump out both on East Carson and on 12th. We're keeping all the curbs that are there. The only curb that will be replaced is down here at 12th and Roland, because that ADA ramp has to be redone. And that will necessitate a new curb in that area. We do have some unknowns here, and they revolve around trees. I mentioned the two street trees that are on Carson. When we got our initial feedback from the city, they were asking for 3 street trees on Carson and 3 on 12th. Well, if we have the 2 that are already on Carson, there's simply no room to add a third. And the 3 trees on Carson then destroy the view corridor to the mural that was very important in the public feedback that we received over the course of this planning. So we do have the 1 street tree, which does not interfere with the view corridor. And our hope is that the 2 street trees that we will not be planting on 12th, and again, there's an issue of space there as well as the view corridor, that we can plant elsewhere on 12th, either across the street or down closer to the park. We are removing the red buds where this grassy area is here. There are 2 red buds. One is dying and the other is not faring well. And we met with the city forester back in 2019, and she told us, yes, there were 4 trees we could remove without having to worry about caliper replacement. 2 were these street trees down here on 12th by Roland. And 1 was the Zelkova close by East Carson in the mural. And then this 1 red bud was the 4th one. Any other trees we remove, we will have to do caliper replacement in the immediate vicinity. The pavers will go to the curb so that we can expand, we can make the plaza look as big as we can. The donor sign, the large rounded granite donor sign that is on the plaza now from the previous fundraising campaign will not be on the plaza. And answer A to what happens to those donors that are no longer recognized is that we are thinking that we will put them, we will continue to remember them, but they will be put on some of the pavers. The answer B was, is it possible to actually slice that granite stone in half in the middle, and so use one half, the front half of that, place it flat down at 2 different areas of the plaza, and so use what's already made. And that's not answer A, because the people that we've talked to about cutting that stone are not sure that it can be safely cut. So that's an if. There is also an artwork sign that is that says Esser's Plaza somewhere, and that's going to be has to be a later stage, because we haven't even begun that piece, planning that piece. There will, I think I said there will be electric receptacles put in for electric and sound. There will be park benches, this small park closer to the small garden space closer to Carson. These two boxes indicate park benches. And as I said, and you can see on the lower green space by Roland Way, you can more clearly see the canal stones here. So there will not be park benches there. The next slide should show a detail. Oops. There. Okay, so here's the detail of the pavers. And these are, we call them canal stones because they were on a north side canal. And so they are of some historic significance. Now this is, we're working with Jeremy Brown from the Quattro Bonsi. His plan is to keep the garden areas fairly simple. So you can see, I don't have to, I think all the wording is large enough for you to see what the plans are for both of those areas. Then here's some detail. Here's a picture of the light and of the light pole. And I thought that I would include the cost estimate, just so you could see, that there is going to be a low planter rail. We are going to have those two benches that we talked about, or three, I guess. We're going to have, trash cans, but this, the canopy trees that are here, we've got 8 in there. And as you know, we only talked about adding that one street tree. The other 7 are for the perhaps the caliper replacement that we may be responsible for once we get rid of the other trees. So that finishes my presentation, and I can take some questions, and I hope I've got some friends who are willing to help me answer.
Well, before the questions and comments begin, I failed to mention that this project is going to be going to the Historic Review Commission and also the Art Commission.
Correct.
And with my, I'm in the really early learning stage of our historic guidelines, but what I did see for those that are attending this meeting, that the HRC will review all construction on building lots within the historic district that are visible from a public street or way. This includes paving, lighting, light standards, walls, fences, and landscaping. And when I looked at information from the Art Commission, it said that you may not remove or reorder any structure that is currently located on public property without Art Commission approval. This includes structures, trees, and features. So, that's maybe what it is that, we're looking at, and certainly Bob and Jody can provide more guidance there. But I thought I'd just give a little bit of a framework for questioning and comments, if I'm correct.
Yeah, Barbara, you're correct that the Art Commission covers things that are happening in the public right of way. So that's their scope. And the Historic Review Commission, obviously, given that this is a historic district, what's that piece?
Well, and I apologize. We do have a request to Lisa Chaffee, who's out of town this week. So and we really can't move any further with this until we get we know exactly what city forestry will allow us to do with the trees. So, and that's still not settled. I apologize.
Kitty, thank you for presenting. I'd just like to add a couple things. So first of all, this is a project being supported by the Southside Community Council. So we are kind of judging our own project and work here, just to be full disclosure. But however, this is also a city park, and we are doing a private renovation for the city of their park. And we were, when we talked earlier about who should be seeing it and whatever, we talked about the art commission not being involved because we were going, we're basically doing their park. We're trying to do what's right with them, with the city's public works and Lisa Chaffee and others. So not saying that we're trying to avoid it. We're also just trying not to get loaded down on bureaucracy and meetings when we just like to move ahead with construction. So we will do it if we have to. I'd like to not. Just my comment.
Well, the other thing I just wanted to say is that Chris Hornstein, who's the acting director of DPW, agreed to write a letter asking that all fees be waived to DPW and the Art Commission and the Historical Review Commission. So that even if we have to go to all those commissions, it's great that we won't be paying for the trouble.
Hi, Kitty, it's Matt. I just had one quick question, and I think it's answered. The lawn, is that real living grass?
At first, it's going to be real living grass, yes.
And it's raised up off the ground, so it's not at ground level?
Right, that seating bench, I failed to mention, is 18 inches high. And so the grass will be at the lowest 18 inches and will mound up.
Oh, that's great. I'm really glad that there's not astroturf and that the grass isn't on grade, so to speak, for all of the dogs in the neighborhood.
Right.
I think that's like a great final solution there.
Yeah, I concur with Matt. I think, can you guys hear me? Is my mic okay?
Yep, it is.
Yeah, I'm with Matt. Seeing these kind of raised planters or stones around planters gives them a little bit of defense of holding back the trash that kind of blows around the pavement and ends up in all these little green areas if they're at grade. From the LRC's point of view and from HRC and the guidelines, yeah, there's not a lot in the guidelines about non-building spaces. There are site alteration, 5 or 6 provisions, and they largely want to deal with fencing or new things and or I'm not aware of anything particularly historic. You talk about the canal stones, but they weren't here and on this site, from back in the day. They were brought from another location. I do like them. I'm glad you're keeping them and reusing them. And this is a plaza that the design overall, I think, feels like an appropriate urban plaza. There's a kind of green space at the opposite end of the street at Sarah, which is sort of a green space with a little pathway through it that, maybe Hansel and Gretel would be walking down, and it's, not an urban solution that I would call for a green space. So I appreciate that kind of gestures being made here that make this feel like a truly kind of urban plaza off of Main Street, kind of commercial district, location. It feels appropriate. And tidying up of trees, again, the guidelines don't really address trees and plantings or per se as to what you can or cannot do. It's just sort of, it just remains within the HRC's purview, and therefore the LRC can comment on its overall approach. But I don't see anything controversial right now. Even the lighting, I'm glad you're adding lighting because I always found this little parklet kind of dark and a bit foreboding and hard to feel good about walking past at night for most people. So I think lighting will help that and kind of bring it into the fold of the street scape a little bit more. So all in all, I think generally things are good here. I will forward this up to the rest of the LRC members, particularly John Martine, who I think had a lot to do with the mural that's on the side of the building, and probably has a little deeper knowledge of what may or may not be original in this park or worth keeping. But I think all in all, it was a space where buildings used to be historically and were torn down or lost over even years ago. I think it probably predates the district guidelines.
It was a fire.
Right.
Just to your point, John Martine did meet with this group. He was involved with our early on meetings, and his early sketches, which he brought, or we found, I forget which, described it as more of a European court style parklet. And we feel like we're bringing it back full circle, back to more in line with what the original vision was, with the added context that we wanted it to be more of a area where we could hold a presentation or some type of live event, you know, that it's more in line with our community, I feel today. And the one thing that you did mention there, Bob, was the mural. This renovation doesn't include anything to do with the mural other than we might be adding some lighting to address it, to uplight it. But that's not been the focus of the project. We're gonna look into that afterwards as an after project, I believe, Kitty, right?
Yes.
We have to work with the owner and find funding for that, but reestablishing it or repainting it would be, you know, the desire, I think, of the community and us. So, thank you.
Hey, Kitty. Hi, this is Mike McKay. I have 3 quick questions.
Okay.
You had mentioned early on about climbing rocks.
Yes.
Looking at that drawing there, the climbing rocks, I'm assuming, are down on the bottom right-hand corner there. What exactly, who's going to be climbing on these rocks?
Well, I'm not even sure that they're going to be climbing rocks anymore, because there's a piece in the city code that says you can't have a playground within 50 feet of a residence, and climbing rocks indicates a playground. So I think we're just going to modify that, and it's just going to be some kind of seating.
Okay, and that in mind, on the other side of Roland Street, there's a playground and they can climb all they want over there.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one was the raised grass area. Who will maintain that? Who will cut that?
Well, in terms of the entire plaza, we will follow the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy model of stewards, and have stewards maintain the gardens and that grass area. Right now, there's a little electric, I think it's electric, battery operated mower that's been put in use, that belongs to SSCC, that's been put in use at 11th Street. And so that mower can do this little grass mound, but even more than that is, these little gardens will have to be maintained. But we will have a list of garden stewards for this plaza.
Let me answer that, or let me talk about that as well.
Finish.
This will go under green and that, with our other gardens that we maintain, like the 11th Street Parklet, and we maintain about 7 gardens right now. So this will go under green and that, and it'll happen with the green and that funds. The lawnmower was purchased through green and that funds, and one of our volunteers actually houses that in his residence, and he'll probably maintain the grass, but it'll be a steward or stewards that'll handle Essers. And right now, me being the chair of green and that, I make sure that if that steward needs anything, they have it. If they need any plants for the year, they get it. Or if they need any equipment, they get it. I do go to community council if it's a large amount that we need. But if a steward needs replaced and we need somebody else to take over, we do have that. So once a garden comes under green and that, we do make sure that it is maintained every year.
Okay. My final question then was, the bike rental station that's there right now. I'm gonna hope that that gets moved. Is that correct? That'll go somewhere else?
I don't know that. I don't know that. So that's one of the reasons we're not doing this. I mean, that's one of many reasons why we're not redoing this curb. But Mike, unless you know something about this bike rental area.
No, we've always assumed that it was going to stay. We think it's it's complementary to the park use and bringing people there. And now with the curb cut, the bump outs that will be built, it will kind of nest and protect it, both on down 12th, and there will be another bump out that will protect the parking that starts on the Carson Street side. So it's the bump out for the Carson project is actually pretty large there. But yeah, no, it's intended to stay. And just so everyone knows, we did ask the city to continue the paving as part of the Carson Street project down to Roland and around the corner if possible. So we're hoping this will look like a finished product when done and be, more complete. So hopefully that answers the question.
We have a hand raised from Senko 1. Would you like to ask your question? It's like they're on mute. We did also have 2 comments. Well, one question, one comment from Bree. The question was, have we considered ground cover instead of grass to get the same effects without requiring equipment?
It came up in multiple discussions, what goes in that space. And yes, it was considered. I think the people, the design group would like to try grass. It's an aesthetic choice for now. And if it is not maintainable or we're not having success with it, we would be the first to change it. I guarantee it. We don't want it to look, to be the sort of the ugly part of the project here. So, yeah. Katie, anything to add?
Nope.
Yeah.
Hi.
We also had a comment. Thank you for taking this on. I walk through this plaza frequently and I'm thrilled to know it will be renovated.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I can't really hear that, but.
Okay.
I just have one question. But before I get to it, I think this is lovely. The sort of embroidered ground surface with different patterns of paving and textures, and then the new things popping up out of that, the new trees or the new benches and the raised planter area, which is genius for the dog situation. And then the canal stones, but there's one little thing, and it's on page 10 of your presentation here. And I think this is a detail that maybe the lighting manufacturer provided. Yeah, if you zoom into the upper right corner, so you have these,
Okay, so how do I
you
zoom?
just keep it there.
That's all right.
So you have these beautiful light fixtures, with this, very sculptured kind of base and shaft, and then this, nice fixture part at the top. But if you sort of pan up to the upper right a little bit, they're showing a mounting detail. Yeah, keep going, keep panning to the right a little bit. Right. Yep, there you go. They're showing this beautiful light fixture on this big honking concrete blob. I'm wondering if
Yeah, that's not the intent.
yeah,
No,
if they could
good
just like
catch.
take that concrete blob and make it go away, so you just have this beautiful light fixture popping out of the ground.
Yeah, it should be flush with the grade. You're absolutely right, Peter.
That's my only question. All right, thanks.
Yeah, I think we just snipped and gathered some standard details here, and you're right. That slipped through, but we'll address that. We'll take that back to the engineers to change. So thank you.
Nice, Peter. For LRC and HRC, in particular HRC, any samples of the paving and color
Yes.
scheme and stuff would be helpful.
Yes, I do.
Perhaps.
I do have that. And I just when we were doing that, I thought, I should have put a photo of the pavers there. I do have a photo. I do have that information, and I'm sorry I didn't include it in this one. Not sure if I can get it within a reasonable period of time.
Not a problem. It was just
It was a consensus choice by the group. It wasn't just an individual, Bob. Just,
Yeah.
you know, it looks very nice. And there's also a price point we're trying to hit as well to meet the estimate. So,
again, I don't think there's anything particularly controversial. It's just that,
Yeah.
no, they'll probably, I'm anticipating questions from them about that.
great.
Yeah.
And I think by it's not that you need to get that information within the next couple of days. If you can get it, and then you can provide that to the LRC, and then because they also, as Bob just said, they are very much aware of the questions that HRC will be asking. And
Okay. I just knew I couldn't find it tonight within the next 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I keep everybody waiting for 10 or 15 by the time I found it, but I would be happy to send you that information, Barb, and then you can distribute it.
For anybody who's interested, it's actually it's the same manufacturer and paver line as the Quattro Bonsi's driveway, except a different colorway. So if anybody's walking by, you can see it. They have a wider variety of sizes, but it's very similar. So,
Kitty, it looks very nice.
Thank you.
yes, thank you, Kitty, all your hard work.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thanks to everybody.
When is it going to the HRC?
Well, I don't know yet. I mean, we need the input from Lisa, and then we need a little more input from zoning.
Okay.
And then I think we can pass out the applications to both HRC and the Art Commission. They're
Okay.
ready to go, but
Yeah.
and also, it's probably safer to say I don't know yet, because we are dealing with volunteer labor and Engineers Without Borders. And so, they fit us in between their own work life and their home life. So sometimes we wind up waiting more than we would like to, but can't beat the price.
No, there's been a lot of progress. It's Marie and
Yes,
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you, Marie.
And we're always looking for donations. So please keep us in. Right. Thank you, everyone. I have to leave. I'm sorry, but
Are there
Thanks, Mike.
any more questions or comments for Kitty?
Just last thing is HRC in April is kind of late. It's on the 7th. It's not next week.
Yeah,
It'll probably go to May, I guess.
yeah. It could be May or later, because again, for both the historic, after the dam, there is that 30-day period for additional public comment. So, and I think, I can't recall, but I think there is a need to wait 30 days before it can be scheduled. So at the earliest, it would be May if you all were ready. If not, it will be later.
No, I am aiming for May for sure. Yeah.
And so again, similar to the, what I had said for the Planning Commission, we will take additional comments or questions via our email at info@southsidecommunitycouncil.org. The Historic Review Commission meets, I think it's the first Wednesday of each month, and they will take comment, either a letter, an email, or you can always, anyone that's interested can also be part of the Zoom meeting, as long as we have Zoom meetings. So the information is similar for the Art Commission as it is for the Historic Review Commission, and the Art Commission meets the last Wednesday, the fourth Wednesday of each month. But it's very similar. You know, we will take additional comments for the next 30 days. And in the testimony can be provided to the Art Commission, and the email address is pacd@pittsburghpa.gov. And this information is on the city planning website also. So again, the the dams are now, the recordings are placed on our YouTube page, Southside Community Council. We're working on a new website, as I've continued to say, we are working on that, which will provide us more, I think, of a place to put follow-up from these various projects. And our next dam will be April 22nd. And currently we have nothing scheduled. So who knows what will happen the next couple of weeks. But I do, again, want to thank everyone for those of you that were presenting, those of you that have been in attendance. Thanks again. The process works because of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Barbara.
Have a
Thanks,
good
Barb.
evening.
See you guys.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
So I think